patients in Germany, a lot of them, they don't know anything about entourage effect and all these kinds of things.
I would argue we're probably the first in the US at least to assess cannabis use exposure at the level of nuance that we do.
So, that's the other thing is that each of us is different in different ways with, how we respond to medicine and compounds, and even caffeine or smoking pot or whatever, right?
It's Reefer Madness, the podcast with Trevor and Kirk.
Well, hello there. Welcome back to Reefer Madness, the podcast. Today we're going to continue listening to a conversation that Trevor had with Dr. Vlad Gavril from Germany. And why don't we just have a listen to Vlad's introduction of himself before we continue?
I'm a GP from Germany, and I'm listening to your podcast every week whenever there is a new episode since almost half a year now. Like I said, I'm a GP, but I'm focused on the treatment with cannabinoids. I'm interested in it since almost 6 years now. But I got my license 3 years back now, and since then I'm prescribing also because before, of course, I was just consulting and I was not allowed to prescribe myself.
And now here's Trevor as he continues his conversation with Dr. Vlad.
How about, I don't know if one comes to mind, but a really unusual case where, I didn't know that cannabis would help for this. And anyone come to mind as sort of an unusual, I can't believe cannabis helped this person kind of patient that's come up lately?
I just had a case on last Friday. I do a lot of telemedicine also. And I had a video call with a patient from Munich, and in the south of Germany, also there, cannabis, is really, in Germany, in the south, it's where beer is from. So there they drink a lot
Bavaria.
of beer. Yeah, exactly, Bavaria. So he was a 59-year-old, a guy who was doing a lot of trading. And because he was doing trading also in America and Australia and so on, also he developed insomnia. And he started the conversation with telling me, I'm just here because of a friend of mine. And I said, okay, well, but how can I help you? And then he told me about the insomnia, which was ongoing for years. Sometimes worse, sometimes got better and so on. He tried benzos and so on. He was addicted to them. He told me he will never take those again. So I told him well, you are at the right person here because I believe that with cannabis we can do better than with benzos and so on. So he told me he doesn't want to smoke. He never smoked cigarettes and so on. So I told him, okay, then we have the option of an oil, and it's way better because also a lot of patients who come to me with insomnia, they used cannabis before, many of them, and they know with cannabis, of course, you can reduce the time that it takes you to fall asleep. But because via the inhalation route, the duration of the effect lasts for let's say 2 to 3 hours. And when you got a bit of tolerance, then even less. So I tell my patients, of course, with cannabis, you can reduce the time for you to fall asleep. But then after 2 hours, 3 hours, you will be awake again. And then it will be hard again for you to fall back into sleep. So that's why I do a combi therapy, basically. I tell them, take something to inhale for you to fall into sleep faster. But then for sleeping through the night, you will use an oil because the oil takes much longer for the effect for the onset. But then it lasts 4 to 8 hours. That's what the literature we have here says.
Sure.
And I told him too, and he was really reluctant. Yesterday I got an email from him, and he was thank you, you're my king. Like I love you and so on. I can finally sleep again. I'm so thankful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And in the beginning, he was totally reluctant. He just made an appointment because a friend of his who also was suffering from insomnia, he came to me. But like insomnia is something that we know, like that we can treat with cannabis. Like in my opinion, everyone who like maybe smoked when he was a student or whatsoever, he knows that cannabis can put you to sleep if you have the right terpenes also. But like cases where like I was really mind blown are like, of course, cases where like the patients were not able to go to work anymore because of the pain. They were like really like stuck in bed. They barely could walk. We as with my two basically they are my bosses. We do also like house visits, you say also in English. Mm-hmm. We go to them, to their apartment, to their house. And we had one patient, he was like, he wasn't able to come to our office. He was not able to. And with him, we started like, he had like pregabalin, he had all the drugs that you can imagine. And then we started him on cannabis. And after like, it took some time, but after 2 months, he was able to walk again properly, without any pain. So this for me, of course, it's one in like, let's say 100 cases. But for me, everyone counts. So even if it's just the one, I'm happy for him because it changed his life. He went back to work. He is not dependent anymore like on the money that he is getting from the government. His quality of life is way better. Like it's amazing, like how you can change patient's life.
And that's amazing. But on your pain patients, like your guy on the pregabalin, do you find when they start using cannabis for pain, they start using less of their pregabalin and less of their opioids, and does the other medication end up becoming less?
For sure, not all of them, for sure. But some of them, yes. For example, a friend of one of my brothers is a roofer. So of course, when you work like as a roofer, like then after some years, you will have the chronic back pain and so on. So he had like, I think on 3 different levels, he had herniated disc and a lot of pain. And he was put on opioids starting with the age of 20 and really heavy doses, even like they exceeded the maximum doses. So in my opinion, the doctors made him addicted to opioids, right? Like he was to oxycodone. And with time, like after 6 months, we were able to taper off the opioids completely. So he's without.
Really?
But this is,
all the way off?
Yeah, all the way. But with many, and this is also an important thing to say, with many patients, you try it with cannabis and there is no benefit at all. It also happens quite a lot. So this is also like in the discussion in general, like, I listen to a lot of podcasts, I go to Congress and so on, and I only see black and white. So in my opinion, we have to make ourselves like honest again and transparent and tell patients it's an option, but it doesn't work for everyone.
That's a good message. Yeah.
Yeah. Why I try with many patients is because if you take the side effects and you compare it to, for example, for chronic pain with opioids and so on, and for long-term use of opioids, the side effects with cannabis, if you use it properly, are really, really low. Plus, it's super easy to get patients off of cannabis. There is no, how do you call it with opioids, the withdrawal symptoms.
Withdrawal.
Yeah, like these you have, of course, you have them with a lot of patients that use cannabis recreationally, and they used it like they misused it, to be honest. There you can have if you just cut the cannabis, then for the first days or even weeks, it will be really hard for you to sleep properly. You will have maybe also sweat, night sweat and so on. But if I get patients of cannabis, which were like really good with the dose and so on, they are really good. How do you say if a patient gets the right dose and so on? We have the German.
Yeah, the right dose. Yeah. The right dose, the right dose.
then it's really easy to take them off of cannabis without any withdrawal symptoms.
Well, this has been fascinating, and I'm really glad we got in contact over LinkedIn, and you agreed to, pick a time of day when we were both awake to talk about this. I'll go to my usual last question. Is there anything that you think our listeners should hear about? Any question I missed? Anything you really want to talk about before we let you go?
Yeah, like I said, to talk also about the bad sides of cannabis, of
Sure.
the misuse. This is really important to me, but also to ask your doctor, ask him if he can reach out to a doctor who knows about cannabis already, if he or she doesn't know about it. There are these associations that we have in Germany by now, which you can reach out to, and it's hard to find a doctor, but there are doctors, and you can also do telemedicine, which is okay in Germany by now. Let's see for changes. But also for doctors, I want to say, just have in mind that cannabis can be an option. And if you don't know about it, check for colleagues like me or others. There are many others who know a lot about cannabis, because in my opinion, you want to do the best for your patient, and sometimes the best for your patient can be cannabis.
Dr. Vlad, it was really good to meet you. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Kirk, I loved my chat with Dr. Vlad. One of the things that leapt out for me is he, like all the other docs we talked to, he didn't start because a patient came to him. He sort of got interested in cannabis because a friend who had a wholesale cannabis company started telling him about all the cool stuff that cannabis could do, and then he started looking into it. So a different route in than we usually hear about.
Yeah, that's very true. And how he learned about cannabis was by getting into the international scene and calling people up and talking to people. Whereas what we have learned in the past from many of our practitioners that go back to the early aughts is that they were learning from patients. Whereas this gentleman, and thank you very much for contacting us, he went off and talked to the medical researchers, the godfathers.
Yeah, he just called up Professor Meshulam. He mentioned Dustin Sulak, just not really a plug, but we'll do it anyway. I have Dustin Sulak's book here, one of them. I've heard him talk a few times at CanMed events. So yeah, he just, gone on a Zoom call with some of the big names in cannabis. I'm sure he did other research too, but we learned through Zoom, and he was too.
Yeah. So, but it's kind of cool. This is a Germany-centric story, and Germany is now, and this is what we need to. So, what we were talking about. Germany is one of 3 European countries that is technically legal for recreational cannabis, but they've done it in a unique way.
Well, and he would disagree, as I did ask him that he called it partial legalization in April 2024. So before that, you'd need a controlled drugs prescription to get it, like you would for, fentanyl and hydromorphone and other opioids in Canada. We call it M3P here, but a controlled drugs prescription from the doctor. In 2024, you need a regular prescription from any old general practitioner, and you can get cannabis with that. But when I asked him, there really isn't a walk down to a local rec shop without any pieces of paper and buy cannabis. That wasn't really a thing. But you did find that there does seem to be some social clubs in Germany.
Yeah, well, like always, a lot of our guests just send me into rabbit holes. And according to Wikipedia, cannabis in Germany, quote unquote, cannabis in Germany was legalized for recreational use by adults 18 years and older, April 1st, 24. I've gone to several different sites on the internet, how to buy weed in Germany through cannabis clubs. So I think what Germany has done, from what I've read, is that it is legal to grow cannabis. You can grow up to three plants, and he mentioned that. And you can get cannabis from a medicinal prescription, and we talked about that. But in the rec market, I guess what they've done is that they haven't made it easy to get cannabis. So you have to join a social club to get your cannabis legally. And I guess, we've said this 1,000 times. We believe, 99.9% of the people that consume cannabis are doing it for a medicinal reason. But they call it a rec market because the police don't bother you. So the other thing that's unique about Germany is you have to live in the community. You have to live in Germany. I think it's up to 6 months or a period of time before you can go to the social clubs and get cannabis. So tourists can't do this. Unlike, I guess, what I did in Spain, no one told me I couldn't do it, and nobody even perceived that I could do it. But I guess in Germany, I wouldn't be able to go to the cannabis clubs and get stories, or maybe I could go, but I wouldn't be allowed to consume cannabis. So tourists can't consume cannabis. You can't go there and have a cannabis holiday. But I guess
but on something completely different, because pharmacist here, I thought it was cool that people are going into a pharmacy to get their cannabis. You can have it delivered. That was cool, but also cool, maybe not surprising. You don't, stand in the spot that you get your cholesterol pill and your antibiotic and also get your cannabis. It seems to, because of stigma, seems to be in literally a separate part of the pharmacy. So I'm picturing a divided pharmacy, or maybe one door for regular prescriptions and another door for your cannabis, but it does seem like he said it seems to be separated, which still better than what we had here.
Cannabis, and how we perceive cannabis, and how this plant is just so. How people are just so afraid of it. And I shouldn't say people, how governments are just so afraid of it, Again, Wikipedia, we've got Czech Republic, Georgia, Germany, and Luxembourg, and Malta are the European countries. Malta's not in Europe, though. So we got four European countries that are now legal for the quote-unquote rec market. But again, there's nuances to it in the sense of going to Germany. So is there anything specific that like obviously the pharmacies, they get it from pharmacies?
A couple of things. One, not surprising because, people are people. Like one of our previous guests, and I've heard him talk now a few times in public talks, Dr. Blake Pearson talks about an unhappy triad of the types of people who come to his practice to get cannabis, and it matched perfectly with Dr. Vlad. So Dr. Vlad was saying, chronic pain, insomnia, and anxiety, depression, that combo. So it's maybe, again, not surprised. Maybe I was hoping that in Germany they were going to all come in for MS or something. But, it's not. But no, it's the chronic pain, can't sleep, and depression, anxiety is the reason they're there. Again, not surprising. German insurance companies don't like paying for vaped cannabis, but they will pay more often for oil. And then one that I just kind of blew my mind a little is you can't, according to Dr. Vlad, you can't really smoke a joint in Germany. Like combustible pot or tobacco, or there's not a lot of smoking. So they write right on their prescriptions to vape, not smoke. Again, he says, I won't call vaping safe, but it's certain safer than smoking because you avoid those tricyclic hydrocarbons, the stuff you get from burning. You should get way less of it from vaping. So I thought that
you're
was
talking
cool.
Vape flowers, right? You're talking about flower vaping.
He was talking about buying flower and vaping it.
Yeah.
Another one that I liked because he stresses the endogenous endocannabinoid system. So instead of the $5 word, your body produces cannabinoids and it uses it for, keeping your body in good balance. He talks about when after he's prescribed an exogenous, a flower or a oil that after it's helping you get more in balance, that you've got to use your endogenous, your internal cannabinoid system to do stuff. So you said, once you sort of feel a little better and want to get off the couch from your depression, then you still have to go for that run or walk to have the exercise help out your endocannabinoid system. You still have to now eat well to help your endocannabinoid. So I like that he was trying to balance exogenous or outside cannabinoids with what your body was producing anyway by, stressing things like exercise and diet and meditation. He threw out meditation.
I think the word he used was engaged. Yeah. I think that's because that's what stood out for me as well, is that his practice is to engage the endocannabinoid system, which I find interesting because I have always been, from the get-go when I first discovered cannabis as a teenager, cannabis has always been an active thing for me. I would go bike riding as a kid. I'd go hiking in the Souk Hills or up Mount Doug in Victoria. I would go to the beach. I was always moving. Those people, like I had friends that, would go into the basement of their house, and their parents were pretty liberal, and we would hotbox a bedroom, and then people would sit around and listen to music, and yeah, okay, this is good, but let's do something now. And that captured me when you said engaging, because for me, I was never a lay around listening to Pink Floyd guy. Never was.
Another one, and I really, and probably not surprising coming from a clinician instead of a researcher, he said, when he listens to cannabis podcasts or goes to conferences, it seems to all be black and white. This works fantastic. This works great. He said, you got to remember, it just doesn't work for some patients. And, to tell them ahead of time, we are going to try this for your chronic pain. And here's the reasons why I think it might work. And, here's the risk benefit, which is all good. But, it might not, and we might have to try something else. So he said, I've definitely had patients I tried cannabis for, didn't do a thing. We had to try something else. So I think that's good. It's, in some ways, it's just like every other medicine. It's going to work for some people, not for others, and it's not magic, and I like that. But he did say the nice thing, sort of on that risk benefit thing, is if it doesn't work, unlike opioids and benzos, really easy to come off of. There's none or minimal withdrawal effects, unlike opioids and benzodiazepines, which can have serious withdrawal effects. And if it's not working, it takes us a little bit of time and effort to get somebody off of it safely and for them to be comfortable.
I'm smiling at you here, Trevor, because you use a phrase that I want to push back on, and that is like cannabis is like any other med. It's not. That's the whole point. It's not like any other med. And I know from a pharmacist's perspective, you're looking at it. I get it. But this is the whole unique thing that frustrates the Western concept of medicine, is that it's not. One flower may not work for you. I think I said to you, a while back, a friend of the show gave me some genetics, medical genetics, and I was growing it without any feedback on what this stuff was. And so I grew some plants, and some of the plants I grew, I like my flower. I've said that many times. I'd go out and have it, and I'm waiting for the intoxication. I'm waiting for that THC whatever, and I'm going, well, this is garbage, but it's not, because more than likely it's a very high CBD cultivar. So what I've done, as I go out and again, it's so expensive to send your cannabis off and get it analyzed that a lot of growers don't, and I tend to be that guy now. But what I've come to understand about these plants as a grower and using it medicinally is I know that particular cultivar, which I have in a jar in my cold room, is I use that for the rubs now, for the creams, and I use that and I mix it in with some of the other ones, so I know I'm getting a multi-cultivar mixture, which is what Dr. Goldstrich talked about, and I use that particular cultivar specifically for my medicinal use of cannabis, whereas I have some other cultivars that, whoa, this is dynamite, and that might be my recreational cannabis, So
yeah, but just because it can have, you're saying, if they pick the right cultivar, right strain, and we're not minimizing that, but there's going to be people who it just doesn't work for. There's no, you can try 100 cultivars and this is not the medicine for them. And I think it's important for people to realize cannabis isn't magic. It's not going to work for everybody, for every condition, for all the time. And I think that's just good to have out there. And the last one was that just an Eric story for those of you who haven't heard about my son in a little while. So Eric, currently unemployed, but will be employed again. He works in refrigeration. So one of the companies he worked for recently, they fix hockey rinks. Like, he's been all over Northern Ontario and Manitoba looking at hockey rinks and putting in new piping for the refrigerant and he came home end of March for my wife's birthday. We were all out for dinner, and he saw a van of one of the companies he used to work for and was looking around to see if he recognized the person. And he did. The guy's name was Scott, apparently. The company was Berg, and the guy was Scott. I said, "Oh, do you want to say hi?" "No, I don't like Scott." "All right, why don't you like Scott?" "Well, Scott thinks everything German is the best. Everything German is the best. He wants to retire and go to Germany. Everything in Canada is shit. It's awful. Everything German's the best." So Eric, mentioned that his grandmother was from Germany. And he couldn't, apparently Scott would then quizzed him about what town his grandmother grew up in, and Eric couldn't remember. So after that, not only was Eric, a useless Canadian kid, he was a fake German because he didn't know what town it was. So Scott, Eric's grandmother's from Seckendorf. That's in Bavaria, which Dr. Vlad was talking about, the beer part of Germany. And years ago when we visited Doris's family in Hamburg, they kept apologizing to me for the beer, which was fantastic. Said, "Oh, but it's so much better in Bavaria." So yeah, it's just interesting that one of Dr. Vlad's patients was in Bavaria talking about beer, and sort of related to Eric, the fake German, whose grandmother really is German and really did grow up in Seckendorf, Scott. Anyway, just thought I'd throw that out there. Scott from Berg happens to be listening to this episode. So
this was good.
I really like that one. Any other things you want to talk about?
No, what
Dr. Vlad and his practice?
What I got out of this is that we had a general practitioner, what they call medic, Dr. Medic, in Germany contacted us, and thank you very much for doing that. And I guess we're open to others. I mean, if we know that people are listening to us from around the world, we see that in our stats, and we know that our audience is dedicated because we have a very steady number of downloads every month. So there's a lot of you out there that are listening to us, and we thank you. Call us. Tell us a story. I mean, we seem to be getting a little bit of an international buzz going here. We've got stories from Australia, stories from Germany, stories from Morocco, stories from Spain, Britain. And so thank you very much. We're Reefer Medness, the podcast. You find us at reefermed.ca. I ask everybody to go to our webpage because it's a searchable webpage. You can learn from our webpage. And if you are somebody that's just discovered us, the webpage allows you to search by topic and interests, opposed to just starting at episode 1 or episode 170. You can go back and really dial down to what your interest is.
No, it's been another good one. Dr. Vlad, again, thanks for reaching out to us. We'll talk to everyone next time.
Yeah, peace and love. See you next time.
Check out the complete library of Reefer Medness episodes at reefermed.ca. And make sure to follow us on all the socials for bonus info on what Trevor and Kirk are up to.
And let's hope that we have a fan in Scott now.